All right. Hello, everybody. This is Marina, again, your host, Director of Engineering at Jellyvision. I am here today with one of my women CTOs in Chicago, today's guest, and I'm excited to introduce you to Simona Rollinson. She is the current CTO at ISACA. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, we'll start off like I always start off very easily. I kind of want to know a little bit about you growing up in technology and who was Simona growing up as a little girl and how did you get interested into the field of engineering, software engineering tech?
Well, I grew up in a great culture. I grew up in Bulgaria. And the Bulgarian culture actually is very receptive and very stimulating for women in technology. It's actually one of the countries that produces like proportionately most women engineers of any other Eastern European and even European countries. So I was obviously born in the right place, the right time. And I was born in a family of engineers. So that paved the way. They encouraged conceptual thinking. They encouraged, mathematics, lots of mathematics, good writing. So all those good skills that really conducive to a career in technology.
Great. And do you know why that is? Just the curiosity, like why is Bulgaria produces so many female or women in engineering?
Well, first of all, Bulgaria was part of the Eastern Bloc. So generally, during all the socialist countries, they were living in a more equal state between women and men. So I never knew that women or gender plays any role in education or in success in life, right? So I grew up, first of all, that gender wasn't really a thing that we ever discussed. So women were encouraged to pursue higher education, and there was a lot of stress being produced, and put on having higher education. So we were encouraged to pursue higher education.
That is super interesting, very different from what we are experiencing here, perhaps.
Totally, I agree with you. I mean, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I can still see, around the age of 11 and 12, the leaky pipelines of, girls starting to talk that they're not good about math and that she wants to do something else, in her life and, go into the softer subjects. And it just something happens here and we lose them.
Do you see what are the differences between, so I guess, what is happening to our young girls that you see maybe it's different from what was happening to you as a young girl beyond what you have already explained about the circumstances of the culture of Bulgaria? And furthermore, what are you doing for your daughter, if anything at all, to encourage her to stay in STEM?
Well, this is the million-dollar question, how do you, address those things? First of all, I had the opportunity to be brought up by a very strong mother. So as a mother, I'm trying to teach my daughter to be independent and to fend for herself. Again, you got to teach them independence from an early age and also encourage them to really not perceive success as final. Success is not final, actually, and failure is not final, and it's not fatal. It's an ever-evolving situation. So when they get used to not expecting this really perfection, we live in a very positive culture, which is fantastic, but it's always like, no matter what they do, it's great, it's great, it's great. Well, you know what? You gotta work through the situations because life is not linear and they're not gonna always have a safety net. So the sooner you can teach them from an early age and encourage ambition, encourage them to stay in the game as opposed to, okay, I'm not good at this, I'm just gonna drop out of this, right? Sort of work through this, right? If it's super painful, obviously you don't want them to do things that their personality is not conducive. We're not pushing them in something, but if it's really hard, it's good to work through hard situations early on.
Nice. I like that. I have I have I have two daughters and a kid on the way. I don't know their gender yet, and I struggle a lot with this in terms of like what are the lessons that I want to make sure that I teach them. Not struggle, but like I think about it a lot. Like what are the lessons that I want to make sure that they learn from an early age to be resilient and independent and things like that. What is maybe a lesson that you take on from your mom being such a strong mother that you have given to your daughter as well?
Well, my mom really is very interesting. And of course, most women, talk about role models and they all defer to mothers, and which is actually a wonderful thing. But my mother had a fantastic sense of humor. She's deceased. She died last year. She was very boisterous, and she actually has an outrageous sense of humor. And she was an organizer. She was always in different type of social awareness situations that I grew up around, and now it's a second nature for me. I'm a very civically minded person because of her. But she taught me that love and caring and sacrifice, important, but also independence as well. So she also taught me that not to let tradition limit my imagination. I mean, I come from a very patriarchal society, and so that's what she taught me.
Nice. I like that. And so you're giving that to your daughter as well.
And I'm also telling my son that, exactly the same thing. And also that smart girls are cool. I always encourage him, like, oh my God, she's the bane of my existence. She's annoying me. She's my nemesis. I said, that's fantastic,
We like her. We like that one. That's really good. I'm excited. I feel like I have a brother, so I feel like him and I have a similar relationship where I'm like, yeah, no, nerds are cool. Like smart girls, smart boys and smart girls are cool. And especially like, thinking about the striking difference on how we raise our boys and our girls in America, I think is super important. Not only the gender of not only the role of women and little girls in society, but also like what are we teaching boys about our having a relationship with us.
Yeah, it's somewhere I read, I don't recall very well what the saying was, but it's almost like nobody is better than me and nobody is worse than me.
Yeah,
it's this type of mentality that you really want to instill from an early age, because again, I don't want them to grow up with any privilege above and beyond. This is unacceptable in my opinion.
I like that. Cool. So then tell me a little bit maybe about like school. So your school was, I'm assuming then, pretty much even, like you were in class with other women.
Yeah, co-ed. I was again fairly ambitious child in a very competitive situation. I went to an English language school for my high school, and then for college, I was computer engineering in Bulgaria. Then I got a full scholarship to come here to Southern Illinois University at Carbondale.
Mm-hmm.
Exchange student, and 28 years later, I'm still here. Life is happening while you're making other plans, at John Lennon, and that's never truer than in my life. And then after I graduated from college, I basically grew up through the ranks of Follett, which is a company in education, creating services and products for K-12. So yeah, that was my early
career. Yeah. And so at Follett, you stayed for about 15 years. And that was, started as a senior software engineer, and you went all the way up to president of the title reads Ops Research, Dev and Sales. And so how was that? So 15 years at one company right now is sometimes unheard of, right? Yeah. How is that for you in comparison to what you think more technology, like younger generation technologists, are doing now?
Well, it's I was the right place at the right time, So Follett was fantastic. They provided a lot of opportunities for me. I was promoted every 2 to 3 years. And once you reach a certain level, if you really want to go up, you have to go sideways, right? So again, you stay on a technical track until a certain level, but a lot of times if you want to go further up, you gotta bring up other skills, right? You gotta be more of a boundary spanner. You have to go and grab customer service. You have to understand sales. You have to understand marketing. You have to understand, contracting, vendor management. So it becomes a much more rounded life, right? So I was very fortunate. Those opportunities presented themselves, and I went for them. And I didn't get all of them, right? So I've applied to a number of jobs, and I didn't get them. There was a more qualified or a better candidate at a time than me. And again, so the one thing that was interesting is that I went for those opportunities.
So
You don't stay on the bench and think, okay, I'm not good enough or I don't know enough. Well, for sure, but I just went, and I probably have a larger share of failures or disappointments than other people. But then in the long run, things are not linear, right? It goes down and down. Right?
No, I like that. And I think like something that I struggle with nowadays, especially with managing my team and things like that, is that it's almost like they wait for a manager to tell them that they're ready for their next thing, or that the manager presents opportunity to them instead of asking for opportunities. I wonder, like, how did you identify those opportunities as you went throughout your career at Follett? Like, and how did you know it was a good time to do something different? Like, how did that happen?
The saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will come, right? Well, the teacher will appear. So many times it's not just about opportunities, but I put a special premium on, well, I do actually in life. It's people first, relationships, right? So I really I'm very careful with my relationships. Some of my friendships are from early childhood, but it's not just personal ones, even professional. You have to build those coalitions. You have to understand, you don't go in alone, right? You never go in alone and say, okay, I'm going to do that. You want to have advocacy or sponsorship or somebody to never go in alone. That's one of my key advice is to people to find those relationships and coalitions, and they will open opportunities. So again, so I had I had mentors even through Follett that helped me get to where I am.
That's really good, because sometimes we forget that we need to spend time with other people in order to get where we want to go,
Yes.
and do that. And so then you got to, and then so you started as a senior software engineer, as an individual contributor, and went and became a manager of many people as president, right? Even as CIO of the Cook County government. And super interesting how I was watching one of your interviews that you gave about updating the Cook County technology stack, or at least a part of it. And that was like a really interesting thing. Is like, did you have any advice for people that are deciding whether to say individual contributor and or manager, and how to evaluate what path to take?
Well, it's a little bit like declaring major in college, right? So at some point you have to decide, if you want to be an expert, subject matter expert, because again, those are skills you have to work at. Like, it's continuous learning, and those skills are becoming, and all skills are becoming more and more difficult, but you have to be continuously learning, and you can't be good at everything. So you have to sort of decide where your energy will go. And if you have the personality, the aptitude, and the desire to be on a management track, then obviously it's a choice. You can go back. I'm not saying that it's one and done, but it's more difficult because again, it's hard sometimes to regain some of the technical acumen, when you really let those skills being stale. And that's a point in time. I'm one of those examples, right? But I early on decided not to be a jack of all trades and be good at all the programming languages, but I was focused on C++. So at some point after I lost, this edge, I decided I don't want to just go back and be a mediocre Java programmer, right? So it's almost like 10,000 hours, right? You have to really spend the time to amass a certain knowledge.
Nice. I really enjoy how much thought you've given to these decisions throughout your career. I wonder, do you have a failure that you think about that is like a good lesson here? What maybe one of your favorites that we can talk about, whether a Follett, probably a Follett would be good.
Well, I mean, I have so many failures. I have a long career of of good moments and bad moments. Now, the idea is that the number of good moments should hopefully supersede the number of at Follett, I'll give you a couple of examples. One at Follett and one at Cook County. At Follett, I've been in situations where we've done acquisitions that didn't work well, and we had to dismantle them. And unfortunately, it's a very traumatic time because it impacts people. And my hardest lessons are about. I've had all kind of failures. I've had failures of technology. The server is down, the website cannot handle the traffic. You have nefarious traffic. Those things, those are good things. You want to learn, you want to get better operationally, but the ones that really are most painful to me are when people are impacted, right? When there are layoffs, when there is a change in direction, and you can't save them all. So those are difficult management decisions, and then good planning, is good, and recognizing your mistakes. And actually, when they say fail fast, they say it in many things, and actually I agree with this. At Follett, that was one of the things that I learned from our chairwoman of the board at the time. I came and suggested that we divest from an acquisition, and she said she was very disappointed, but she said you should have come earlier, right?
Wow.
Because many a times, I tried to fix it, and this is one of those lessons that I learned, that you sort of have to have the bravery to come up earlier.
Nice.
And then the other one is at Cook County. Obviously, 5 months into my tenure, we had a major outage. I'm sure if you look at the Sun Times and the Chicago Tribune, you'll find some type of, oh my God, the antiquated Cook County, technology. Obviously, a lot has changed since then, but I saw a team that went through a lot of turnover when I went to Cook County. So I wanted to stabilize and sort of heal the team. And I didn't make a lot of changes. I trusted, I didn't verify. Trust but verify, I didn't do that, So obviously we've had a risk, a vulnerability that manifested itself. And I could have probably prevented this if I have been much more aggressive, but I took a very measured approach because it was a very new environment for me, and it was a mistake.
Nice. I really enjoyed that lesson. And so I think my question is about now, like, what do you do once that happens? Like, what have you found is the best approach to go about moving through the mistake?
Well, when you're in the middle of the crisis, you're fixing the crisis. This is not the time to coach people. It's to have any emotions. Again, it's it's a little bit of a military operation. You have to have the drumbeat, right? You're in the middle of the incident. You have to really pull out the operational incident response plan, and hopefully you have vendors on call, you have legal counsel, whatever is the issue, you move through the crisis, but don't let any, a good crisis. I'm sure a lot of you people have told you, don't let a good crisis go, array. So afterwards, you try to look at the processes, operational procedures, whether, we have enough redundancy, whether we have the skill sets. Some of it is about capabilities, right? I mean, some of the capabilities at Cook County at the time were pretty antiquated, so they required COBOL programmers, and it's hard to train, find. So it's a plan that you do after the crisis is done.
Nice. I'd like to hear also, like, what was your emotional response, if there was any? Is like, like when you're in charge, and it's happening more and more to me, is like nowadays when I'm in charge and something happens to my team, is like how, I think about, like, first of all, emotionally, I get into probably a bad space initially, right? Where I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? I am in trouble, right? But then, like, my response is to, like, go protect the team and figure out what happened. But then I have to face my boss too at some point. And so that's a thing that is always kind of like owning up, to the mistake and getting there. Do you have any suggestions on how to navigate that well?
I do. How you handle conflict and accept responsibility for shortcoming is key. So, first of all, I try not to throw stones when I live in a glass house. You're saying, right? Because all of us live in glass houses. So I should never forget this, because when I turn and try to throw stones at a peer of mine or criticize, it has happened to me so many times. So I'm really, really mindful of this, and I try to, well, it comes also with tenure and you understanding that nothing is forever again, right? Success is not final, and failure is not fatal, right? Unless you actually die. But otherwise, you will be in those situations. So you have to sort of really be professional in those relationships. So that's number one. And second is, you actually the buck has to stop with you, and that has worked for me. So actually, I went to President Prekwinkle at the time, and I suggested, or it was the chief of staff, I suggested that I fall on the sword, and say, I'm going to resign, but let me fix it. Let me get through the crisis, and then I'll resign, right? Because I take responsibility. But obviously, she took a different approach. She said, you didn't create it. You're only 5 months into your tenure. You didn't create it, right? It's a historical neglect of IT at Cook County. So she gave me a chance, and 5 years later, it was a very different story. But again, it was a lesson for me how to handle this. And sometimes you have to, accept the responsibility for the team. I'm the chief apologist. That's what I have. Chief apologist.
Apologist. I love that. That's really good. I find this super incredible that you suggested you resign. Something similar happened to me recently, and I made a similar move to save my team. Yeah, like I find that awesome. It's like really, like, I think is like one of those traits that indicate true leadership versus, management, or just wanting to cover your ass, like people say, right? So that's very admirable. Let's change subject a little bit. And I know we talked about it a little bit before. Is like, as a woman in tech, how maybe like how was your experience affected? But then even more than that is like, as an immigrant, right? Because I have an accent. I'm an immigrant myself. I have an accent first. Like I came here to the United States in 2009, and I'm obviously an immigrant. And I feel like that's something that people see in me, and I know I recognize in myself. I was wondering if throughout your career, how that maybe was a strength. How was that a strength and a weakness in technology, and how it impacted your positions?
Well, again, I didn't really focus on this. I've never felt that it's a limiting factor for me personally. But I'm very apprehensive myself, right? So I'll be the first one to admit, because my husband is English, he has an English accent, and everybody thinks, oh my God, how great this is, that gives him like 20 IQ points more, even though he has an accent, but it's English. My children, have American accent, and of course one of my children sounds as if they're from the South, like as if they're from Alabama. And here I am, and it's like, you guys are related? Yes, we are. So I'm apprehensive. Especially if it's not also about the accent. It's about expressing what you have in mind. This is for me the limiting factor. So especially when I'm writing, I try to take extra time, because things are lost in translation, especially culturally. Oh, I meant this, but especially when you're under pressure and you're doing like short sentences. And I have a story that I often share is also my handwriting is indecipherable. So I will write notes and give them to a business analyst. And one time he just sat there and stared for a while, and he asked me, "Is this Bulgarian?" Oh, it's English. Maybe I was meant to be a doctor. And so again, I try to apply a little bit of sense of humor, but again, the thing that has worked for me to overcome this, right, headwind is I've paid my dues several times over, which means high availability. I've stayed in the game, and I've had a very supportive family that helped me, pay my dues and work the long hours.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As a woman in tech, you're obviously a different generation than I am, and you hear, you're likely hearing, all these things about, well, especially having a different concept from Bulgaria is like generally women are in engineering, and then you come to America, you work in America, and you're like, why are women not in engineering, right? Do you, what do you think about this? Do you have a perspective? And as a woman in tech, in America, how was that experience for you?
It's super hard here for various reasons. First of all, if you want to have a family, you have to dedicate time to the family. Many times, the commute is long. I mean, I live 36 miles away from downtown Chicago. So when I was at Cook County and afterwards at Clayco, I mean, it's a 2-hour commute each way.
Yeah.
Right? Not everybody. The most expensive commodity in life, obviously is time, right?
Yes.
So I've missed many concerts. I've missed many soccer games. I've made choices, to stop traveling because I was on the road all the time, so that I'm closer. I've made choices. So some of those choices have been, opportunistic as well. So I would never ever dare to put myself in anybody else's shoes, because I know how complex this is, and especially with the distances here and the fact that there is very little social safety net. I mean, you have to have the 2 incomes, and you have to have an insurance. Otherwise, well, you're almost like a hostage of your job, because if you don't have health insurance, it's very hard to get medical treatment. So again, there are a lot of things that are much more complex here than in Europe, right? You're not a hostage of your job. You can actually have a health care if you take a pause.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like, and as a woman, have you seen like what is your leadership style towards maybe other women that are now in technology and growing up under your supervision?
So I'm trying to a little bit pay forward by mentoring, coaching, involved in different activities. I'm really so, for example, at Cook County, I hired a CTO she's still there. She's a CTO of Cook County, who is from Asian background, so extremely qualified and super bright. But again, I try to always find a role where a woman can fit, and it's easier in private world because there aren't so many regulations, where in Cook County now obviously was much more complex because of the Shackman decree and all the limitations on favoritism and stuff like that. But that's a different story. So I truly try to hire a diverse candidates if possible.
Nice. That's really good. And you've been a mentor at Chicago Innovation, and you've held multiple members. So you've been really like active in what I can tell in like the Chicago, tech world.
Yeah, and you know what? It's hard right now because again, in companies are not hiring the patterns have changed, right? Certain industries have been affected by COVID significantly, so the dynamics have changed. So the world like we knew it in December 2019 is different. So there are people out of jobs that are looking for jobs because again, whole industry segments were affected, including tech. So I'm trying to really network and figure out how to advise people. And my goddaughter just came out of college, and with computer science degree, and it's just hard to get a job, right? They say, oh, computer science, it's like the Silicon Valley. Everybody should be able to get a job. Well, no, not really.
Chicago, Chicago's tech industry is specific. It's very narrow and specific. I agree.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do. There's a lot of work that we need to do in Chicago in order to expand our tech presence to a national level, like the coasts, like the West Coast, East Coast, and then the Austins of the nation. But maybe let's go back a little bit to to being like in tech and being a CTO. What's your favorite part of the job, and what's your least favorite part of the job?
I love technology. I mean, I love everything about, whether it's, we're talking about disruptive technologies like blockchain or artificial intelligence, just moving to the cloud, just solving big problems, I love it. I love the pace of it. Maybe some people, get intimidated. Many days, I feel like Lucille Ball in the chocolate factory episode, where I'm eating chocolate really fast, but I do like the pace of it. So that I like the pace. I like the people I meet there. I mean, the people are my favorite part. It's incredibly stimulating. There are so many people that are smarter than me that I meet, which is fantastic because I get to learn. The old saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I believe. So I'm pretty jazzed about the next generation of technologies like yourself and even younger. I think people are much more conscientious and deliberate. They're not going to be choosing necessarily the shiniest toy because, again, we IT people, we're famous for picking up pet projects. Oh, I'd like to do that because this is such a cool technology and it's very sexy. I think the next generation would be much more conscientious and picking up the safest projects, the safest technologies with an eye on privacy and citizen rights. So I think this is all going in the right direction. And in fact, that's why I joined ISACA, because we are a nonprofit association that's involved in learning and training the next generation of practitioners. So I think ethics will play a major role, and I think I'm loving it.
Nice. And then I want to come back to the ethics of privacy for sure, if that's a topic you're interested in, because I have theories about who owns the data and all that good stuff. I would love to hear your civic side of that. But what's a part of the job of a CTO that maybe you don't like as much? Like, what is something that, somebody is maybe a VP or trying to like move up? What is part of the role that maybe they should be aware of that is not as fun?
Well, IT is not any longer a back office job, right? It's not a support of the business. So if you treat it as a glorified service desk, then it's a problem, right? But IT should have an active seat at the table because it's driving the business, right? But so that's the exciting part. You want to get much more proactive, but it's also high pressure because people are expecting that technology will solve sometimes issues with strategy. And that's for me sometimes is when I see that IT is supposed to be the answer to more foundational strategy problems, business problems. And the opposite is true. I get most jazzed and excited when I'm actually reporting or working for a trailblazer, somebody that has a big vision and we can actually get it done together and quantify and qualify, the impact of technology as opposed to, with business. So that's for me the concern with IT being the scapegoat and also the answer to things that are much more foundational.
So how can you give me an example of what that looks like in real life, and then how do you deal with that specific when technology is used as a solver for more maybe organizational and strategic issues?
Well, it's not easy. This is because again, it's a foundational problem. So you sometimes those things are bigger than you. I mean, I often say that CIOs and CTOs don't decide culture, right? And you know the old saying by Peter Drucker that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it may not be even it may not be even the strategy that's wrong. It may be culturally the organization is in such a situation that it's not possible to really solve things, and they're trying to just throw technology in to solve things that are culturally people have daily and cultural impulses that are unmet. So when you're in a situation like this, you have to really try to approach it with a mindset of a listener and try to understand what's really happening. What are their daily challenges? What are the cultural impulses of the organization? And then sometimes you need a fire. You need a big fire, which means either external or internal fire, right? You might have somebody needs to come from the outside, to help with understanding that we are so stuck internally. Sometimes, it's a different approach. But one size doesn't necessarily fit all, right? So that's why organizations are different, right? Some are wildly successful and others are not, right?
Nice. And then what is the reference to culture that you just mentioned? I don't know this.
Peter Drucker. He's one of my favorite, management consultants. He died few, years. So it says, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
And what does that mean in real life?
It means that you can put the nicest. What is strategy? Strategy is we're gonna get from here to there. We're gonna get from a paper-based process to to the cloud, right? And we're gonna get there in 3 years. And you put this beautiful strategy in year one. I'm gonna migrate those things. In year two, I'll do that. In year three, and you have the strategy. And culturally, the organization is rejecting you, right? You're like the virus that the body rejects, but you want to be the good bacteria, right? You want to be the good person that actually influences them to change, but they're rejecting you culturally. It's like, yeah, sure, those projects will be delayed, or we're not gonna be able to get a contract with this vendor. I'm gonna put roadblocks on her. Oh, you know what? We're gonna start another initiative somewhere that is completely, secondary, and we're gonna tank her strategy, right? So again, culture is superseding the strategy.
I see. Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. Like culture makes or breaks the company. Absolutely.
I agree.
I haven't heard Peter Drucker, but or Draker. I will Google it and then grab something from him for sure. I know you mentioned like civic initiatives and tech. What is right now a civic initiative merge tech that you're super interested in and that you're following, and something that maybe is important to you?
Well, since you interviewed me on the eve of elections, obviously that would be something that I can always mention. But again, the initiatives that really were near and dear to my heart at Cook County were around criminal justice. And again, these are big, lofty goals, right? Those are things that are wildly important, right? So, having good technology in the juvenile detention center, or having technologies for automated court reminders so that people don't miss their court dates. Those, for me, are high-stake goals, and I really was very excited to be part of this. And anything that you can drive the decrease of, of jail population, recidivism, so things like that are near and dear to my heart, and I'm still continuously following on some of those things.
I am super excited to continue to hear about this. I hope you post about it, or you share with me some of the things that potentially us and other technologies could get involved in order to help Chicago overall. That would be cool.
There are a lot of opportunities for technology to be even further equalizer, and create opportunities. So, for example, we automated the exchange of data between the clerk of the circuit court and the jail, right? It's called the Mitimus data. And that's important because it was paper-based, right? If people have my handwriting, you can imagine, mistakes happen, right? So, and lives depend on this, literally. So, that, I will remember, and those are things that were important to me.
That's really good. Quick question for people like me that have no idea about how to join even like a technical job in a government situation or in a government agency. Do you have any suggestions or resources that if people are listening and they're like, oh, I want to get involved, I'm in tech, where do I go to apply for a tech job at Cook County?
Well, okay, so the U.S. government is pretty complex. It's not like we have like one major portal where I can just send you and give you a double, dab, URL. You sort of have to apply to each individual government, right? We have local governments. Like the city is separate from the county, right? Oh, and by the way, in the county itself, you have separately elected officials, right? We vote for the state's attorney. You vote for the clerk of the circuit court. You vote for the clerk of the court. So there are like 9 separately elected officials on top of the board of the county. And then you have the city, and then you have the state, and then you have federal jobs. So government, is an umbrella of multiple municipalities and different levels of government. So you have to apply separately. You have to go to each of their websites and apply there.
And does like Chicago specifically have like a Cook County or a city of Chicago job post for tech jobs?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, it's on the same, obviously the process is more regimented. You have to go through this front end. You can't go through the sites. You have to apply when the posting is up. Posting's up for a certain time, they come down and you've missed your window of opportunity. So you have to pay attention. Many of those postings are now aggregated by Indeed or, Dice or, other of the big aggregator, job sites as well. So just pay attention and yeah.
Nice. What was that like? Dice is one of the aggregators?
Dice, Indeed. Again, I haven't been close to this since I left Cook County in 2018, but yeah, you can absolutely pay attention. And again, there are multiple, the assessor, the treasurer, the hospital. I mean, Cook County has the 3rd largest hospital in, public hospital in the United States. So those are separate postings, right? And that jobs everywhere.
Yeah, it feels like it's a big machine. But I'll take a look, and I'll release some of the links
Yeah.
in the post. But thanks, that's helpful, because sometimes I've thought about, like, hey, what if we were doing a tech in government? Where do I even go to apply? Or it feels like I have to know somebody in order to get in sometimes.
Yeah, that's not the case.
That's another. That's great. I'm glad that's not the case. All right, so we're coming here to the end of our interview. It's obviously been a pleasure, and I have a couple of like quick questions for you, and then we're going to close out with my closing question. What is a book that you have gifted the most recently, or that you like to gift your team? Yeah.
Well, I've been thinking about this because I'm a voracious reader, so I love reading, and I've been very fortunate. The book that I'm gonna give you an example is actually not. It's an adult book, but it's also a children's book. It's called The Little Prince by Antoine Saint-Exupéry.
I've
And
read The Little Prince. Is one of my favorites.
it's tiny, but it also, it's about, this prince that visits all these various places, planets, including Earth, and it's all about love and loss and friendship, and
Why,
so,
why do you recommend that one?
well, because it touches the bigger, higher things in life, right? So it's life is we're gonna go through this life only once, right? So I'd like to, make sure that people and relationships are in the center of my belief system. And this is a book that touches on many of those concepts.
Nice. I'm gonna reread it now that you mention it. It's been multiple years since I've read it.
Yeah.
What is a book that you would write?
It's a book that I would read. Um, I like sagas, right? Like family sagas, big, interesting, multi-generational stories. So, for example, one of my other favorite book is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So it's mystical village, and it's incredible women and men, and they are amusing, and they are sad, and they are magnetic. So I'd love to do something like that about my background, which is very, very different, right? I mean, I grew up in, the country was, Bulgaria was part of the German bloc during the Second World War. Then, the Soviet army came and changed multiple generations, and how the different destinies weaved. I'd love to write something like that.
That's awesome. I like it.
And then I in the States, so now I'm here.
That's awesome. Like, it's a international, multi-generational saga.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, and then last question. And what does it mean for you to be embossed, Simona?
Nobody in life is truly, there is no such thing, I often say, as a self-made man, right? We are all a product of our families, of our, DNA, of our environment. But to the extent you can, trying to live my life in an independent way, independent thinking, independent decisions, and just having the bravery to have no regrets, right? Sort of move forward, right, and look into the future without regret.
That's amazing. That is exactly my sentiment with Emboss. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Simona. You're just one of the 40 few female women CTOs in Chicago that I could find. And I'm doing this for other young females, and making sure that other women stay in tech and continue to grow. I hope they learned awesome lessons here today. So thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.